and to be drowned in the depths of the sea. It goes to show God as a protector for his children, as somebody that cares for his children. So yes. And then God as empathetic and compassionate. In Matthew 18:5, Jesus underlines in his words that we should be able to put ourselves on the same level as children. And he says, whoever receives a child in my name receives me, which goes to show that us as well, whoever receives one little child like this in my name receives me, which goes to show that us as well, we should be able to be empathetic and compassionate just as Jesus is. And then God is just as well, very similar to the verses of Waymaker and Defender. But yeah, I'll give you guys like 2 minutes to get the scriptures down. Okay, great. So on to the next slide. If you haven't got it, just get it from your partner. Thank you. Okay, cool. So who exactly is the vulnerable in the Bible? So when talking about the vulnerable in the Bible, the focus in the Bible is on widows, strangers, and then orphans/children. Caring for people that are in distress is included both in the Old Testament and in the New Testament. So in Exodus 22, verses 21 to 22, I will just read that out. Okay, it says, ye shall neither mistreat a stranger nor oppress him, for you are strangers in the land of Egypt, and ye shall not afflict any widow or fatherless child. So in the Old Testament, it teaches us not to oppress strangers, since the Israelites were once strangers, and we were also not to afflict widows or fatherless children. Similarly, in the New Testament, it becomes the definition of authentic religion. So James 1:27 says, okay, Zion shall be redeemed with justice and her penalties with, wrong verse. Thank you. Pure and undefiled religion before God and the Father is this, to visit orphans and widows in their trouble and to keep oneself unspotted from the word. So yeah, just as we can see in both the New and the Old Testament, it is continuously emphasized about safeguarding of this group of people in particular, so orphans, widows, and children. So cool. So genuine fasting was also something that is constantly mentioned in the Bible. It involves sharing food with the hungry, and acceptable worship has to include providing shelter for the wanderer. We see that all throughout Isaiah 58, which talks about fasting and talks about how we should be able to help those that are in need. Similarly, in Matthew 25, verses 31 to 46, it is Jesus' teachings of the parable and the sheep and goat. It talks about hospitality towards the vulnerable as a signifier of being saved. Cute. Can we have the slide? Yeah, cool. So cool. So, as I mentioned, there are over 2,000 references to the matter of justice and injustice in the Bible, of which the principles of safeguarding are mentioned. And I've just went through a few of them on safeguarding and obviously who the vulnerable is and why it's important. So great. So all these scriptures that are mentioned and that we've spoken about, it goes to show why that safeguarding is at the very heart of scripture. So it's something that shouldn't be overlooked, but also something that should be considered as part of ministry as well. Okay, so why should we care about safeguarding? Cool. So we're going to read Proverbs 31, verses 1 to 9. If somebody could offer to read, that would be fantastic. Ayo. Okay, thank you so much, Ayo. So cool. I'll give us a bit of backstory. So King Lemuel. Hello. Okay. So King Lemuel, we're not sure exactly what king he was, but many scholars believe that he was maybe Solomon, and that Lemuel was like a nickname that his mother essentially gave him. But even though we don't know this, what we do know is that his name means devoted to God. We also know that he had a very wise mother who instructed her son about the necessity of true social justice. So cool. So why should we care? First of all, the Bible's unequivocal articulation of God's concern for vulnerable people should motivate Christians to take safeguarding responsibilities very seriously. And this is even more the case for us as we are in positions of power, influence, and responsibility. So for that first point, simply put, the fact that God has a concern for the safety of vulnerable people should also mean that we all should have concern for the safety of vulnerable people. Just as we said earlier, we went through the different parts of God that reflects that he's a safeguarder, and we see that God cares for vulnerable people. So that is the reason that we as well should be able to care for vulnerable people. Second point, we're to emulate Christ, just as the kings of the Old Testament were to emulate God, and this includes caring for the vulnerable. So King Lemuel, like the other kings of the Old Testament, were supposed to represent and emulate God. In Psalm 68, God is described in terms of his power and majesty, but this description doesn't stop there. It also goes on to include his concern for the safety and well-being of vulnerable people. He's a father for the fatherless, a defender for widows, and he sets the lonely in families. So for us, what that means is this is the model for all of us in positions of power, which means we should be emulating God. Nobody is too important to care for the vulnerable. That point. Leadership brings with it the temptations to take advantage of the vulnerable. So if we look at verse 5, it said, lest they drink and forget the law and pervert the justice of all the afflicted. So we see in verse 5 that King Lemuel's mother was teaching him of the possible temptations that would come with being a leader. So we all know that we are leaders in our own rights. Every minister's training, we literally talk about this, the fact that we're all leaders. And we know now that with leadership comes temptations to take advantage of the vulnerable, whether that's intentionally or unintentionally. So to ensure we don't do this, we must be able to care for how our role is perceived and how our role is put out. Yes, great. 4th point, servanthood over grandiosity. Would somebody be able to read Mark 10, verse 45, please? One. Yes, thank you very much. So a common theme throughout the Bible is often servanthood, as we see here. So there are many examples of servanthood in the Bible. For example, even Jesus, after criticizing the way that many leaders would use their power to make themselves appear more grander or more important than they actually are, he argues that leadership is about serving others, even to the point of laying down one's life for the sake of those that we care for. That is why, even in leadership and even in caring for others, we should be able to choose servanthood over grandiosity, which is basically portraying ourselves as more important or higher than we actually are. Cool. 5th point. So, we cannot live life like others in order to truly safeguard. So, in verses 3 to 7, Lemuel's mother kind of just explains to him how he shouldn't give strength to women, he shouldn't behave how the other kings were behaving, he shouldn't behave how other people were behaving, because this is not what it means to be a servant towards others. So his mother tells her son, the appropriate ways to behave. She teaches that he cannot live like others around him. The temptations of a powerful man in a patriarchal society, such as indulging in women or alcohol and not behaving appropriately as a king would. There would be distractions from his primary focus and his calling to care for those who are vulnerable. Likewise, we as well, we cannot live like people of the world. So that may include things like partying or drinking. Oftentimes, doing so can cloud our judgment, which may lead to safeguarding issues or literally put us in situations that would then require safeguarding. So that is why it is really important for us to not live like others, especially when it comes to safeguarding. And then finally, safeguarding should be at the heart of our ministry, not as an add-on. So in verse 8, it says, "Open your mouth for the speechless, in the cause of all who are appointed to die." Verse 9, "Open your mouth, judge righteously, and plead the cause of the poor and needy." So Proverbs 31 verse 8, it challenges leaders to give greater significance to its role, greater significance to safeguarding in our lives and in our ministry. So placing the needs and the interests of vulnerable people at the heart of our ministry and our mission ensures that safeguarding becomes an integral part and an essential part of the wider activities that we may be doing. It also ensures that we're being active rather than responsive. So we're solving issues before they arise. If we kind of put it as like an add-on and something that we think about later, it can mean that we're just solving it when it comes up. But what we want to do is we want to ensure that we're being proactive and we're putting in responses in place beforehand. So when these issues do come up, we already have a response ready for it. Yep. And then I think the last point kind of sums up the question well of why we should care, because essentially keeping the focus on good safeguarding practices in ministry can enable leaders to withstand temptation, pursue God's priorities, and get stuck into the business of caring for all people, which is exactly what we are called to do. Yeah. Okay. Next slide. Oh, previous slide. Okay, great. So now practically, on to the next point of how would we care for the vulnerable. So we know who the vulnerable people are. We know why it is that we should be actively trying to safeguard these people, why as leaders we should be safeguarding people. So how do we care for the vulnerable? So same verse, Proverbs 31, 1-9. So first of all, we should be advocating for vulnerable people, which essentially is speaking up for the voiceless. So King Lemuel is commanded to speak up for the voiceless, and the theme of advocacy for the vulnerable is repeated throughout the book of Proverbs. The destitute, vulnerable, and oppressed must not be forgotten or ignored. We must look at it as their cause also being our cause. Throughout the Bible, God is attentive to the cries of the poor. He heard the blood of Abel that cried out from the earth and the cries of his people when they were in captivity or exile. God commanded that his people are similarly attentive to the cries of the poor. And yeah, advocacy is great, speaking is great, but what's even greater is if this advocacy actually leads to action. So, advocacy is about giving voice to others and their concerns, and one way we can do this is by making good use of opportunities to use our own voice to speak for other people. Another way that we can do this is by giving a platform to other people, and this will enable and allow their voices to be heard. When advocating for others, we need to ensure that we are not attempting to steal the limelight from the victim or from the person that is in need of safeguarding. We also need to make sure that we're not attempting to make ourselves look better. This is all about the person that we are advocating for, and to ensure that we correctly reflect what it is that the victim wants, what it is that the victim is trying to say. So examples of this could include calling out wrong behavior when you see wrong behavior, or speaking on behalf of somebody else. Great. Next, dignify the person. So King Lemuel is to speak up for and defend all of those that are vulnerable. This goal must surely be that all in our communities receive fair treatment and protection in all times and in all things. We can't pick and choose between who it is that we want to give fair treatment to. We can't pick and choose between people or groups based off our own preferences, our own prejudice. The Bible teaches that we are to treat all with equal dignity, whether that's old, young, male, female, black, white, family, enemy. The Bible calls that all of us should be dignified no matter who we are. And then we are also not supposed to choose by ourselves who we think are the people that are deserving or undeserving. So that includes children, widows, homeless people, disabled people, whoever, anybody it could be. We are not the people that should be judging them for whether they're deserving or undeserving. We are just there to give them a voice and to dignify them if they find themselves in a difficult situation. And then, cool. So this applies to all without status in our country, or with disabilities, or victims, or struggling with systematic and societal discrimination, or those who cannot feed for themselves, can't speak for themselves. Whatever the reason, whatever the situation for their vulnerabilities, we must safeguard them on the basis of their vulnerability. So examples of dignifying them could include things like treating them with respect, validating their claims, elevating their status by using examples of other people in similar situations. Great. And then finally, we should defend them. Cool. So King Lemuel is instructed to make sure that due legal processes are applied to the marginalized, oppressed, and the vulnerable. His position as king at the time meant he was uniquely placed to expedite this, but engagement with legal processes is available to everybody in a democratic society. So essentially what I'm saying is he had the power to do all of these things because he was king, but we shouldn't think that we don't have the power to do those things because we're not kings. Because in our respective places, And in our respective characters, we all have different things that elevates us above other people. So we shouldn't use his position as a reason to say that we cannot also defend, dignify, or advocate for other people that are in need of it. We have the power in our own respective ways, and we should optimize that wherever we can. So Proverbs, like the rest of the Bible, refuses to allow for a sacred and secular divide between a leader's responsibility before God to care for the needy and to also engage in civic legal processes. So therefore, we as well should also be engaging in legal or political processes that are not less spiritual, or they're not less important than other ministries that we should be engaging with. As a matter of fact, they can actually go hand in hand. Yeah. And then when there are already safeguarding policies in place in a system, we can engage with them. And where those systems don't adequately support or protect vulnerable people, then we can also speak up to ask for those processes to be reformed and use that opportunity to speak with policymakers or whoever it is that's in charge that can create change, essentially. So examples of defending could include things like educating ourselves on policies, voting in elections, calling for the introduction of new safety measurements in whatever environment that may be, whether that's church, work, school, wherever it is, calling for new safety measures. Great. Does everybody have the points down? Okay, great. Next slide. Great, so we're gonna do a breakout activity. Yay, fun, so cool. So how we're gonna do this is each group will be given a scenario relating to safeguarding. And what we're going to do is we're going to, one, identify the perpetrator and the vulnerable person. And then second, we're gonna explain how we would advocate, defend, and dignify the vulnerable person / people by using what it is that we discussed on the last slide. So yes. So how we'll do this is, we might do 4 groups instead, but could I have everybody that's 13 to 15? Do we have anybody 13 to 15? No? Okay, no problem. Okay. Okay, cool. We'll do 1 to 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6. 1. Some of you want. Yeah. 2. Shubham, you're 2. 3, 4, 5, 6. Peter, you're 6. 1. Okay, great. So if the 1s go over here, 2's in the corner over there, 3's can stay at the front here, 4's in the corner next to the camera, 5's in the middle here, and 6 can be at the front here. Okay, great. So I'll send the scenario into the group chat. So essentially, take a few minutes to read over the scenario and then discuss about who the victim is, who the perpetrator is, and then finally how you would advocate, defend, and dignify. Also, choose one person that is going to feedback for us. So, yes. You guys can take a seat, by the way. You don't need to stand, and you can just have like a group discussion. Okay, so group one is scenario one, group two is scenario two, group three is scenario three, group four is scenario one, group five is scenario two, group six is scenario three. We have 2 minutes left. If you haven't chosen already, please choose your person that's going to speak. And that is time. If we could all go back to our seats, that would be great. Could I also get the speaker for group 1 and group 4 to come up, please? Group 1 and group 4. Hey. Okay, great. Cool. So, group 1, where's your speaker? Yeah, group 1, yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. So I'll just give a quick overview of what the first scenario was so everybody can understand. So the first scenario is about a 13-year-old boy who's just moved upstairs from the children's church, and he has a stutter, and he's been bullied about his stutter throughout his whole primary school education. So he doesn't feel very comfortable talking with people in church because he's scared that people make fun of the way he talks. So one day you see that he is being bullied by somebody else because of his stutter, and they're saying that, you know, you don't talk to anybody in church, like, what's wrong with you kind of vibe. So yeah, cool. Group one. Okay, so who's the victim, who's the perpetrator? How would you advocate, defend, and dignify them?
Number one, the victim is the young boy Micah, as he was on the receiving end of, let's call it, discrimination. The perpetrator we discussed was what it was Zach. As he was doing the bullying. Oh, that's a bit loud. And how would we advocate, dignify and defend? So first we'll look to dignify, and that is to, actually no, let me go back. Let's go to defend first, because in the immediate response to what happened, you should first defend. And to do that, we discussed not just speaking to Zach publicly, but also speaking to him privately. So when you see the instance of the bullying happening, you sort of want to nip that in the bud. So tackle that then and there, but then also do work afterwards to ensure that this doesn't happen. Pastor Daniel used the phrase tip of the iceberg. So what you see is the tip. So you probably want to try and, you know, deal with the rest of the iceberg, the 90% you don't see. And to that's where advocate and dignify come in. So dignify would be creating an environment where Micah feels comfortable, because it was mentioned that he doesn't speak in church. He doesn't fellowship in church. So dignifying will be trying to create an environment where he feels like he can, not just pressuring him to. And advocate as well also kind of falls under that, like, for example, if he's in cell, encouraging him to speak, etc. And also being patient and not showing any, let's say, signs of annoyance if in regards to his speech impediment. And yeah.
Just as Samuel said, we identified Micah as the victim and Zach as the perpetrator. So in terms of advocating for him, we said that obviously we need to speak up for him. Not everyone's made the same way. So speaking up for him will help him to fit in better with the rest of the church, especially because he's new. He might feel like he's different than anyone because of his age. But yeah, just speaking up for him should help him to blend in better. For dignify and defend, we said that we should speak to Zach in private. Well, obviously stand up for him in the moment, but then talk to Zach in private, because it can be a very bad issue if Zach is a youth leader and then he's going around tormenting basically younger youth because he didn't speak or he's uncomfortable speaking.
Right stuff. So yeah, exactly as they both said, dignifying could look like speaking up for Micah, advocating for him in private as well as in public. I think some stuff that we could also consider is are there already anti-bullying measurements in place in the church? If not, can we speak to somebody that's higher authority so we can introduce something like that? So yes, could we get group 2 and group 5, please? Okay, so quick overview for the second scenario. There's a group chat, many different people in the group chat. One day somebody asks people to send a picture of their bank card in their group chat if they want to make some quick money. And one of the members in the group chat sends their bank card into the group chat. And then a few weeks later, they come back and they say that they've had £900 stolen from them. Their card has been blocked. The police is investigating them for fraud. And the person that's done this, they're too afraid to tell anybody, not even their parents. And the other members of the group chat say it's none of their business and she had it coming. Over to you guys.
Okay, so in regards to advocate, we spoke about how looking at it, she didn't entirely, huh? Oh, sorry. The victim is Rana, the woman who got her £900 stolen, and the perpetrators are anybody that was within that group chat. This is because obviously she accidentally sent it into the group chat instead, because she was supposed to send it to him, but she sent it into the group chat by accident. No, it's not good, but and now the whole area in the group chat is now perpetrators instead of just John, who asked for the money. Yeah, so we spoke about speaking up, so because she didn't want to speak up about it, she was fearful. She spoke about maybe reaching out to some of the people within the group chat to see, get information on what happened. And in regards to Dignify, we spoke about how we could comfort her in that time. We spoke about how her story kind of relates to how Job was as well. How, what was we saying? Sorry, I blanked. Yeah, we were saying how it links to Job, how Job's friends were essentially blaming him for for the trouble that he was going through. But then we tried to also say that instead of victim blaming, that we could, be that voice of comfort, as in the beginning, Job's friends were silent with him, keeping him, calm. But then afterwards they spoke up, but not like trying to hurt her, like victim blame her is what we said. And defend, obviously the card got blocked. She might get a CFS now, so obviously we can be a witness to a witness. We could also, because she doesn't want to go to local authorities as well, so we could also maybe go out and help in that aspect. Yeah.
So yeah, same as what Daniel said. So the victim was Rana, and yeah, the perpetrator was obviously John. So we said, I think we took it from a different kind of perspective in the sense of kind of how could it be avoided. So obviously it was sent into the group chat, or from the beginning actually, the fact that there was a request of asking for money in the group chat and that the card should be sent in, there should have been someone that would have just addressed that there and then, so that we don't end up getting that end result of £900 being taken. So basically everybody in that group chat should have said something and avoided that from happening. And yeah, so that in that case is speaking up for the voiceless, basically. And then in terms of Dignify, I think what we were saying is kind of just, that's also protecting Raina in that situation, because you're making sure to avoid that from happening. And basically, just trying to think of what did we say? Yeah, I think pretty much we said the same thing, that in that case it was about receiving the fair treatment. And then in regards to defend, I mean, it's gotten as far as, the police, but we said if it didn't get to that point, maybe sorting it out in-house, so making sure that the pastor's aware, and kind of making sure how we're going to sort it out. And also, yeah, we said not to be ashamed of snitching, because I think in our society we're kind of afraid of saying or talking up. But yeah, we should definitely feel very comfortable in terms of snitching when we know that people are vulnerable and basically lives are at stake. There's things at stake like money, and yeah.
Thank you very much. Yes, I really like that point about not being afraid to snitch. I think, especially in a youth church, we're all friends. Everybody wants to be buddy-buddy with people, but we need to know when wrong is wrong and right is right. We need to be able to speak out when things are when things are wrong. Yes. Also, other ways that we could dignify is things like I would go to Pastor Daniel and I would say, we should bring over a fraud specialist to teach us about the safety of bank cards and sharing information online. Things like that are other ways that we can dignify people. Yes, so can we have group 3 and group 6, please?
So in scenario 3, the victim was
Sorry, let me just really explain. So, scenario 3, there is a new lady in church. One day you're going up the stairs, you hear 2 people speaking. It's the lady and somebody else. You get closer, you see that it's one of the pastors speaking to the new lady in church. And she's basically saying to her, there's a new special fund that's opened, and all new members need to contribute £600 to it. You've never heard of the fund before. And later, you see that she looks very uncomfortable. What would you do? Okay.
So the victim in the situation is Anya, and the perpetrator is Pastor Bolaji. So in my group, we were talking about how for us to advocate is basically because she's a new member of the church, she's probably scared to speak up. She's probably scared to tell someone, and then in her mind she's like, oh, okay, maybe this is normal. I'm gonna go give him the £600. But no, someone like you should be on your toes, ready to go and tell someone like Pastor Daniel or someone higher up so that they can come and sort out the situation. And then for Dignify, we said protecting all our members as she is new, and someone that's more established like you should be ready to go and speak up and help someone because she doesn't really know the ins and outs, all of that. And then for Defend, basically same thing again, just speaking up and helping others, because we did get a verse, hey, I forgot, one fold, one shepherd. You know, that's a natural verse. We should all know that one, so yeah, that's all.
Yeah, as my brother Peter stated, yeah, the victim was Anya and the perpetrator was Pastor Bolaji. So how will we advocate for her? So we'll speak on her behalf as she feels uncomfortable during this moment as well. We'll question the reasoning behind it. So why is it kept as a secret? Why is this new person having to pay that amount? We'll dignify her by just apologize on her behalf for the experience that she's experiencing, questioning why did she have to pay this certain fund, reassure her during this moment and ensure that she feels safe and comfortable during this moment. And how we would defend for her is that the church should always be voluntary and never be kept a secret. And our group discussed in 2 Corinthians 9 verse 7, which says, so let each one give as he purposes in his heart, not grudgingly or necessity, for God loves a cheerful giver. So giving should never be forceful. It should be something that you're willing to do out of our heart, and Anya feels forced by this. And to defend, we must tell a trusted adult, a leader, a pastor within the church, and ensure that Anya understands that it's not a requirement in the church, and that other involves that it may be attempted theft or fraud, and ask them to engage in speaking to the pastor about the legal implications. So that is what we discussed as a group.
Yes, great stuff. Fantastic answer. So yeah, exactly as Ayodele said. Yeah, we should not keep anything a secret in church, especially when it comes to money. I'm sure if you guys went to Pastor Daniel and you asked him, I want to see the finances for the church, Pastor Daniel will be more than willing to show it to you. So yes, nothing should be kept a secret. And when things like this do arise, we need to be able to go to the people that are in charge and speak up for this. So yes, final slide. Oh, question, yes. So essentially, to answer you, say we're looking at it like in our church scenario, the safe person that we would be able to go to would be Pastor Daniel. So say you overheard that somewhere else, you'd be able to go to Pastor Daniel. And I think the fact that in the scenario it said you've never heard of it before, normally when funds like this or things like this arise, Pastor Daniel makes it very clear. It's very clear to everybody that so-and-so person needs money, or there's so-and-so fund, we would like you to contribute. So if it's something that you've never heard before, but it's the culture within your church that you're well aware of, the different funds that you're asked for and how money is normally spent, then it should be something that's kind of like ringing alarm bells in your head. But yeah, does that answer your question? Okay. Did Evangelist Lauli have a question as well?
Thank you, Evangelist Laulu. I'm just going to link that back to Kemi's question. In this scenario, we did work out to make sure we're not putting anybody on the spot for that. Let's just pray that in this scenario, Pastor Bolaji is not me. And that's important. Because for you guys, your go-to is me. But now when we've got a situation when that go-to is me, then we're in real situation. A problematic situation. Of course, you've got my associate pastors to report to. You also have my senior pastor to report to. But the reality of the many churches is that Pastor Bolaji may well be the senior pastor too. And I hear you, Evangelist Laulu, how is it that we still protect the integrity of these people? This may sound callous. That's exactly what God does not want this church to be. And some of us in the ministry, we are called for that purpose, to stand for the truth. Personally, as you may or may not be aware, it's part of the personal battle I have to face in the church. For youth money, I will go 160%, 199%. Of a way to make sure youth money is protected. Because money in churches is not a new matter. You know what I mean? It's in the top 3 of war break churches. So I've decided as long as I remain as your youth leader, at least that's my jurisdiction, I will ensure there is safeguarding towards money. I've told you before, if anybody call you to the side and start asking you to pay for Ribena, or hugging you, trying to befriend you too much in order to worm their way into your bank account, if you fall for it, it's on you. For me, it's an evidence of disobedience as well anyway, because you know not to let that happen. You come to me. That's part of the protection that I'm trusting God will help me give unto you. None of you in X number of years I've been here can say that I took anything from you. And I thank God for the graces that you show to me and my family. You voluntarily give to us. And in reciprocal, we give back as it should be. So don't let it be a case of somebody's bullying you or trying to spiritualize everything, you know what I mean, into putting you down. But now, if that person is the topmost that you need to report to, may I just tell you now, you will do the church a lot of favor by just going and report to legal bodies. Go to HMRC. Go to any legal bodies that you need to report to, because you will be doing the church a lot of favor. Many churches are shut down because their senior pastor embezzled the money. Does that make sense? So in fact, you will be doing, I'm telling you this, you will do us a lot of favor the moment you realize that Pastor Daniel is spending church money. Because he will end up in shame anyway. More shame for the church. And that's what we try to always protect individuals. In the end, it becomes a shame of the church.
It was a point that Evangelali raised. It was just speaking to what happens if the perpetrator is now in a vulnerable state. Not necessarily same situation, just in general. I'll give a scenario because it's happened recently. Like someone has now, let's say, lied about something egregious, and they continue to lie. But then it's now a situation where, or let's say even in that example that you guys gave, the woman was lying about what the pastor did, and she just kept lying. But now she's in a vulnerable state where everybody's getting onto her because she's lied. How do you safeguard that? And like, what would you do for her? I know it's mad because you should be safeguarding the pastor, but this is a problem I face. As children of God, we should still look to help the person who is the perpetrator because we are all sinners. So, how do you now safeguard the person?
Who's the perpetrator and who's the victim?
In the world, it's the lady, but in my opinion, the body of Christ, both people are the victim. Like, no. Okay, calm. Cool. I'll explain fully. Calm. Sorry. So, let's say there's a leader of a fellowship, or a leader in a fellowship, so a prayer leader in a fellowship, and they now have entered a situation with a man. So the prayer leader is a woman, and the other person's a man. And there's now been lies. The prayer leader has claimed that the man, they were in a relationship, but the man, they weren't actually in a relationship, but to the prayer leader, they was. And the prayer leader has now said that the man was manipulating her, but he knew they were together, but they actually wasn't. And the prayer leader has now gone around the campus saying this, but it's just not true. And now the man has now come back, and he's now explaining to every individual person based on the true story. So now everybody has turned on this prayer leader, and now they are necessarily not being the nicest or ignoring or isolating, ostracizing. Someone used that word earlier, and it made me go to that situation. So in the name of safeguarding, mental health, like I'm someone who thinks about that a lot, so I'm thinking, how do you now help this person in a safeguarding context? That's what. So any opinions, thoughts, please help. Question what? Burdens. Any thoughts, guys, please?
Okay.
From that past.
If I understand you correctly, Ayo, you're saying that a situation has happened where somebody has lied on a leader within the body or within the church, and that person that's lied is now being ostracized and is now being.
The leader is the liar.
Huh?
The leader is the liar.
But the higher leader, whether the pastor of the place.
The prayer leader is the liar, and they lied on a man, just on a member. Not necessarily a member, but like just someone in.
Oh.
Yeah.
I did not understand you quickly. I didn't. Yeah, you changed it.
Okay, cool. So basically, what you said is that the prayer leader has been accused of doing something. No. The prayer leader is lying on somebody else, like a congregation member, that they've done something, but they didn't do it, and the person that's lying, they're going around saying they've done so and so, and the prayer leader's also going around trying to clear their own name.
the congregation member is going around clearing their name to what the prayer leader has said about them.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. So then you're saying, in the eyes of the world, they think that the prayer leader is correct, obviously, because they have the higher.
No, I'm saying the congregation member. I can't lie. Yo, no, all I'm asking is, if everybody's now getting onto the prayer leader, what do we now do in safeguarding? If everybody's now saying, why are you lying? How do you safeguard the prayer leader?
Okay, so you want to safeguard the person that's in the wrong? Yeah. Okay, cool. The person that lied, and they're in the wrong as well. The prayer leader. Okay, cool. I think. What do I think? I don't know. Okay, order in the house. Our sister Kemi would like to say something. Let's see what she has to say.
I just have some questions because I feel like this situation can. Sorry, no, but I feel like it's quite nuanced. Like, did she truly believe in her lie? Is there evidence of him being, like, is there evidence that she was lying?
Okay, cool.
So I feel like with that kind of situation, you need to. It can't just be a he said, she said thing because that's also important to safeguard in a situation like that because it's a very personal thing.
Yeah, so exactly as Kemi said, I think what would need to be done here is a mediator who can actually understand what it is that's going on and understand like who exactly is in the wrong. I think in terms of safeguarding the person that lied, I think it's important for them to be able to say their wrongdoing. You know, just as we say, like, if anybody has fallen short or sinned, they should go to their elders. They should, admit their mistakes and pray for prayer. I think the best safeguarding that we could do in that situation is getting the elders involved so that they can address the situation and kind of pray for them, essentially, yeah. But if you would like to talk more about it with somebody else, I'm sure Pastor Daniel will happily sit down, understand the nuances, and discuss that. Cool. So this is the end, guys. So this is what we did, what we learned. I hope you guys have enjoyed that section. I'll hand it back to Pastor Daniel.
Thank you. Okay, so that was refreshing. More grace in Jesus' name. On that last point, it's not really an unfamiliar experience in this